I used to think that rest was for people who didn't want it badly enough, and that was such a mistake. So, when I started my career, I was really an overachiever type of person who was always working. Like basically, I started my career as I was going through a master in apprenticeship, so that meant I actually worked for 3 weeks during a month. I worked for 3 weeks at a product development agency as a consultant, and then I was going to class 1 week during the month. So over 4 weeks, I would be 3 weeks at work, 1 week in class. Then I had to write a consulting project, like a thesis, to validate my master's. And I was also the head of a student association called TEDx. So if you don't know, you can look it up. But TEDx are talks that are usually super interesting, so useful, and I just loved it. And so you organize this big event where speakers come and talk in front of an audience and share their learnings. And it's just a really great event. But coming back to that, all I did was that. So I would go to work or I would go to class, and then I had those meetings for my association, and then I was writing the thesis. And then since I worked as a consultant, sometimes even when I was in class, I had to check my work emails, or in the evening, sometimes I had to prepare for presentations, last minute presentations for the next day. And during the weekends, very slowly, I stopped going out, I stopped seeing friends, I stopped doing any of the things that I like to do outside of work, because I was just so tired that all I would do was rest and binge watch series. Like, that's literally all I would do during the weekend if I wasn't working. Because remember, I still had my thesis, I still had my student association. So when I wasn't sleeping or watching a TV, like to relax, all I did was actually work on those things even on the weekend, and figure out partnerships and speakers and attendance and marketing and things like that. I was also not very good at delegating at that point, which I learned later, became better at it. But which means that I would actually be very hands-on on a lot of the work, whether it was for the agency I worked with, whether it was for my student association. And I just kept working and working until one day I was at the restaurant on a lunch break with my colleagues, and I could not eat a thing. Like, my stomach hurt so bad, I could not eat one thing. And so I told my colleagues that I needed to step away from work and go to the doctors and figure out what was wrong. And when I arrived, she asked me a lot of personal questions, and I started crying. I just felt desperate and very sad. And she, for the first time, put the word burnout onto what I was living, which I was 23 years old, so it was really hard to burn out. But she put me on sick leave for a couple of weeks, and she told me, like, you need to take some time to do things outside, to see people. And I was like, what am I gonna do if I'm not working? And she's like, just go to a coffee shop, read a book. So that's what I did, and that was when I started realizing for the first time that life after work was as important as work. But you know, I was still young and I had just burnt out, and it was the first time that it had happened to me. And so a year and a half after, I found myself in a similar situation where I was working remotely, which was in a company which was absolutely amazing, but it was my first job after my master's was done, after my studies were done, and I just really wanted to do a good job. So I would wake up in the morning and start working at 7:30 a.m. I would not even go to a co-working space. I would spend my entire time working at home. I would just go out for a run or to do some type of sports. But I became very isolated again, very lonely, and everything I did was working. And at that time, my partner had the opportunity to go work in New Zealand. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, we had a month to decide, and I was like, let's do it. Like, my job allows me to work from there. We should do it. Like, we've always wanted to live somewhere like New Zealand. But when I arrived in New Zealand, everything came crashing down really quickly because my mental health has started degrading because of the fact that I had no life outside of work. And so I started being very non-productive. I started working half days. I started getting very anxious. I started suffering from panic attacks, which had been, I mean, I had never experienced panic attacks before. I had to go to the doctor who told me I was going through a depression again. And so that second time when it happened, this is when I cemented, like, if all you do is work and if it's your entire life, especially when you're working remotely, so you don't have any social connections, if you don't actually actively and intentionally choose to do so, it's going to be bad for your mental health, and ultimately it's going to be bad for your work. It's going to be bad for achieving your goals, because if your mental health or generally your health isn't doing well, then you're not going to be able to do well. You're not going to be able, sometimes you won't actually be able to do anything. And so all the energy you're putting into working because you have all those goals you want to achieve before you're 30 years old, and all this money you want to make, and this role you want to reach, like this career ladders you want to climb, all of it will feel so unimportant the day you are going through a depression or the day you get a diagnosis, like was my case for me for multiple sclerosis. I was in the hospital. It's just, it all seems so unimportant all of a sudden. And because you, like, when I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, for 24 hours I didn't know what it was, and it could have been something much more life-threatening. And it really puts your ideas back into perspective, right? Where you're like, work is important. Like, for me, work is so important. It's something that I enjoy. It's something, obviously, that puts food on the table, that makes you money. And I mean, most of us need to make money to live and be able to cover our expenses, our rent or our mortgage, our food, etc. So it's not like a hobby, it's something we need to do. But it's also something that if you learn to enjoy it, and if you choose something that you enjoy, it goes both ways, right? It's about choosing something that is aligned with what you like to do, but it's also about finding joy in the work you do, finding ways. For me right now in my job, it's finding way to connect with my clients, with my colleagues, finding way to contribute, even if on some days it's small things. Like, I know it's gonna help, and sometimes it's just having space on your calendar for a conversation when someone's not doing well and they need to talk it through, or they need help finding a solution. It's also for me finding ways to grow. So when there is something I don't know how to do it, I'm excited because I know I will get to figure it out, and I will get space to figure it out, and I will get to learn, and that is so important for my growth. So it's twofold, right? It's about finding things that are, you know, finding a job that you like doing, but it's also finding joy in the job you're doing, finding ways to make it more fun, to make it more enjoyable, to make it less stressful as well. And so I'm not saying work is not important. I think work is something that fulfills me. I think part of my goals are related to work. Part of the things I want to achieve are related to work. So work is important. It's important because it makes you money. It's important because it's a place where you can fulfill part of you know, your needs when it comes to growing, contributing to the world. So work is important. But if work is the only thing you prioritize, you're just gonna get lonely, and you're gonna get sad. And you also have to remember that, at least for me, what I'm building in my personal life is probably gonna outlast any job I have. The relationship I'm building with my partner, the friendships I'm building, the sports I'm doing where I'm getting better, taking care of my health, the life that I'm building where I live, it is likely gonna outlast any job, because I'm hoping that I'll still be with my partner in like 20, 30, 50 years, whereas in 50 years, yeah, I will not be working at my job anymore. So there is also this to keep in mind, right? That a job, even when you're an entrepreneur, even when you create a business, even if you love it, like there is a chance that it won't outlast, it won't last as long. Outlast, I don't know if that's the right word, but it won't last as long as your personal life and what you're building in your personal life. So that's like super important to keep in mind. Yeah, and again, like I said, like now I realize how much intention I put into my personal life and how I build it, how much it also supports my work life. For instance, let's talk about energy wise, which if you're a high achiever, you want to have energy to achieve all your dreams at work, you want to be good, you want to be able to work great. In my case, that means prioritizing good sleep. Like I've been prioritizing sleep a lot lately, and that has helped so much with my energy. It's also about prioritizing weight training and running and any kind of sport, because when you haven't practiced any type of sport for a while, usually when you start back, your body hurts, you're more tired. But for me, after a couple of weeks, I'll see my energy switch. I'll be more happy. I'll just find everything more fun. And then usually the moments that I enjoy the most during my week in terms of connections are the ones where I take time to cook a meal with my partner, it's go on a hike with him. When I have an evening with my friend, when I have a Sunday, I go to my grandma for lunch on Sundays, and then we play cards with my whole family. Like those are also the moments where I feel so light up and that I really enjoy. And so it truly, I can feel it truly recharging my energy. And if you don't believe me, like you can also read through, you can look, I think there's a really great documentary on Netflix about blue zones, and blue zones are places where people live longer than in other places around in their country or on the globe. And you'll see those places, people usually eat well, sleep well, move well, but they also have very strong community ties and very strong social connection. And that helps so much with their energy and their well being. And when your energy and your well being is high as well, you're more creative. Like, oh my gosh, like I know when I feel good in my personal life, I'm more creative at work, I'm more excited for work. I also have more bandwidth um for surprises, let's say, bad and good. Mostly bad because you don't need that much bandwidth for good surprises. But at work, you always have things that don't go the way you thought they were gonna go. Things get delayed. At least that's my experience in my role as product manager. And so when you're doing good in your personal life, when your personal life is full, when you have energy, it is so much easier to handle this. Like they're just things that happen that you have to deal with, but you don't ruminate over them for days, you don't ruminate over some interactions. You're just much more present, much more creative, much more solution oriented, much more positive generally. And you also have more space for when life gets harder, because believe me, life will get hard sometime. No matter how much you think that won't happen, it will sneak up on you, and one day it will be hard. And then what happens when it's hard? It will be harder to go to work, it will be harder to have energy. Like your mental bandwidth will be lower, and you'll have less space emotionally and mentally for what happens at work, for what happens in your personal life. And so if you've already built the habit, if you've already built the community, if you've already build the relationships that give you energy, they will also support you in that moment, and they will allow you to not crumble completely and to continue to go to work and find joy in work, but they will support you as well in your daily life, and that's super important. I mean, no matter how amazing a company is, it's still a company, and when you're not at work, who is gonna support you when things are going sideways? Who is going to be here to hear you out and to carry you when you need it? It's just yeah, having a personal life is so important. And if you're a high achiever, it's so important to your professional life and to you achieving all of your goals and dreams, whether they're professional or personal. But it's also so important to your mental, physical health, and to actually having energy to go after your goals, and just generally to have a fulfilled life, with which that doesn't just happen at work, right? It also depends on what happens in your personal life. So I hope this was useful. I hope this, if you're right now, if you're like like me and you feel that sometimes part of your personal life are the first thing to go when work gets more intense, or when things happen in your life. Like I know my social interactions are usually the first thing to go. This is a reminder that it is super important. This is my reminder, and this is a reminder that it is crucial for our mental well-being, for our professional well-being, and to achieve all of our goals in our life, to nurture our personal life, to have a full life outside of work that we enjoy and that we're happy to go to when we are done with the workday. Let me know if this was useful. Let me know one thing you're gonna prioritize to put your personal life first this week, or at least once you're closing your laptop, to do something for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and let me know if you would like me to talk more about these topics, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.